Instead of x's and y's, I'm going to express these points in terms of h and k. And the reason for that is when we go to program our calculators have already assigned values to y1, y2, y3, and all that, so we can't really use y1 and y2. So I'm just going to use h's and k's. So what does my h represent here? Which variable? X, and my k's represent y. Hey, if we get to equations of a circle, they use h and k on that anyway, so it'll be consistent with something that might show up later. So in terms of h and k, what is my slope going to be between these 2 points? M is equal to? Right. Good. All right, so here's my equation. So we're going to come back and refer to this equation when we enter it. Okay, I'm going to show you guys how to define a function in your calculator. Okay, one of the things that I enjoy doing with my classes is anytime we can put something into or write a function and put it in our calculators and save it for later, I'll do that. So that, again, especially if it comes up on a standardized test, if you guys take your calculators into the SAT and there's a slope problem, you can solve it really quickly just by plugging in the numbers in the right order. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Okay, so turn on your calculator. We're going to define a function. So step 1 is we need to tell the calculator what we're doing. This is located under the F4 tab. Okay, so if you hit the F4 tab and choose Define, okay, there's your first step. So your screen should display Define. Okay, step 2, we now need to give a name to our function. Okay, I'm going to call this function slope. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is, do you guys know how to alpha lock the keys on your calculator? Again, I don't remember what I've talked with you guys about. If you hit this alpha key, this white button, twice, it highlights the little A in the bottom of your display, and then you can just type in your letters. And just use the keys that have the letters that correspond. So slope, the S is above the 3, the L is above the 4, O above the subtraction key, the P is under this store key, and then the E is up here under or next to the division. So just alpha lock that. You can close it off. You just give your function a name. Okay, after you name your function, you have to determine the order of your inputs. Okay, so this is the one thing that you have to remember, and that is when you enter anything under this slope function, you have to know you always enter it in the order that you want it, or that you defined it here. And so the easiest order is, if we take these 2 points, here and here, let's just, when we enter our information, let's just go x coordinate, then y coordinate at the first point, followed by the x coordinate and the y coordinate of the second point. So what we're going to wind up doing is we just type in, and what we're going to do is in our calculator, we're going to type in parentheses. Oops, I need to restart my calculator. It got locked up. All right, so F4 define, give the name, parentheses, and now we type in the order of the inputs. So we're going to order our inputs H1 followed by K1, and so we just enter that, H1, comma, K1, and then we're going to follow that by the coordinates of the second point, H2, comma, K2. Okay, and then close off our parentheses. So again, as we do that, you can just type it into your calculator. Okay, so H1, comma, K1. There's the coordinates of your first point separated by commas. H2, comma, K2. Right, once we order the inputs, we're then going to identify the function. Okay, so now we're going to tell the calculator what we want it to do with those inputs. And so in this particular case, we're going to use the equation for slope. And so if we take the difference of the y's and divide by the difference of the x's, okay, we will be done with our equation. So we set equal to, in parentheses we put our two terms in the numerator, so K2 minus K1. Make sure you have the k's chosen there. And then you're going to divide by, in parentheses once again, we're going to group our terms from the denominator. And now we take the difference of the corresponding h's. So h2 minus h1. And then we're done. You can hit enter. When you hit enter after this, it should say the word done. Okay, so when you hit enter, your calculator says done. It's input this function. Okay, now, if you guys did this, even if you're not sure if you did it right, don't delete anything that you've done here on your home screen, because if you did something slightly wrong, I can still come by, look at what you did, and just make a single change rather than having to make you type all of this back in again. Okay, so even if it doesn't work, what we're going to do next, go ahead and just keep what you've typed in and I'll take a look at it. Okay, so now what you can do, anytime you need to access this, the way that you access it is you look under the second button and then the subtraction key. It's going to say var link. Okay, so second subtraction, this var link button, it's going to give you a list of some functions and things that are stored in your calculator. If you want to jump down to where slope is, just hit the button that corresponds to the letter S, or you can hit T, and it jumps to the first word that you have stored with that letter. And then you can scroll up or down to get where you need to get. So here I'm at slope. So I'm just going to hit slope. You could also, if you wanted to, alpha lock and just type the word slope. Okay, and then you're going to order the inputs that we want to calculate the slope for. So let's say we want to come back to this problem here. -1, 4, and 3, 2. If we want to confirm that we got the right slope for that, we'll just plug them in that order. So -1, comma, 4, comma, 3, comma, 2. Now notice I didn't put parentheses around each individual point. Okay? I separated every single input by a comma. Okay? You just need to know the order that you enter it is -1, then 4, then 3, then 2. And when you hit enter, you should get your confirmed slope of -1/2. So now anytime you want to use your calculators to calculate slope, all you have to do is change these variables to what you need them to be, and it'll calculate it for you. And
what's the button for slope if you have to type it in?
no, if you want to access it, you can hit second and then the subtraction key. And then just scroll down to S or T. Easiest thing to do, you can hit just the T, the letter T, and then move up until you get to slope. And that'll bring it up on your screen. Okay. Or you can type in the word. You can alpha lock it and type the word in. And now here's where the big advantage comes. If I were to give you a problem, which I will on the quizzes and tests, whether the book has them written or not, if I were to give you a problem that says X in this problem. Okay, so it's a little bit more challenging than what they ask you to do in the textbook. Okay, but if you were to solve this by hand, here's what you would have to do. Write your slope equation. M equals the difference of y's over the difference of x's. Substitute in the values that you know. So our m value is 5. Our y's are, let's say, 3 minus a -7. Our x's are, when they correspond, x minus a 3. when you subtract a negative, it's equivalent to adding the opposite. So really what we're looking at is 5 equals 10 over x minus 3. To solve this, we would want to cross multiply. So here you would get 5 times x minus 3 is equal to 10 times 1. Divide by 5. X minus 3 is equal to 2. Add 3 to both sides. And we get x is equal to 5. So we can solve this by hand if we want to. Jack?
So the slope equation, is it y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2, or is it y2 minus
Either one is fine.
So either one, it's going to come out the same.
Yeah, because I could say, if I wanted to, I could say this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2. Or I could say this is x2, y2, this is x1, y1. It doesn't matter which one. I can assign either to either. So the order doesn't matter. As long as whatever y you start with, you have to start with that corresponding x. Okay, so again, you see that a problem like this is doable. It's not a huge, complicated set of steps. But if we use our calculators, we can set it up as the equation. So go to the solver, enter our slope equation, type in our variables. So we have x, comma, 3, comma, 3, comma, negative 7. Tell it what we want that slope to equal. We know that the slope is equal to 5. Tell it what we want it to solve for. We want to solve for x. And now we can just hit enter, and we get our solution of 5.